All right, I started recording.
Okay.
Yeah. So you started reading the holochain paper and you got some sort of idea. Um, I was surprised about the holochain. I guess it's a more generic thing. It was like before really diving into like holochain and IPFS, I was kind of thinking about it like kind of as a binary choice, but it kind of seemed like um, if you were going to do like a Venn diagram, it would be like two circles within another. There'd be holochain, and then inside of it, you'd have a smaller circle called IPFS or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and it's like the holochain storage layer is compatible between.
yeah. So I mean, hmm,
Uh, what I found was really interesting is it to me it feels like it's how do I develop a function that runs on a decentralized application, but also that I control the compute node for because from as far as I can tell, all the chain does is synchronize the application and
okay.
then your actual client runs the WASM. It looks like they use WASMer in the background and just runs your WASM library to essentially like give a local host of the server for your application.
Oh, yeah. I think you do define WASM and holochain. Um, they do use Rust. Well, Rust is not WASM, but they write things in Rust because if I, yeah, I don't know. There's a Holo REA thing that I posted recently, and I guess possibly Ghost was programming an HAP, holochain app for it. I think it's just Weho. I'm not sure.
I hate that terminology, but
Why?
I get why they did it. The
Why?
whole like HAP and DNA and zones
Yeah,
feels so unconventional, but I guess the space is unconventional.
yeah. I think in holochain you can have different apps, and if they're flavored, I don't know if it's DNA or something, but like you can build like something that behaves like a blockchain, something that behaves like IPFS or whatever on top of holochain if you wanted to, but like they're different networks within like the holochain ecosystem, so they don't necessarily talk to each other directly, if I'm not mistaken, but they can exist. Um,
Right. I think they can modify like a shared state on the network.
yeah, and I don't know quite how 884M works, but maybe that's meant to like bridge outside of things and like, oh right, and I didn't really dive into it, but there's decentralized web nodes and like, um, I guess that's not IPFS. It's not the IPFS network. So I learned to disambiguate between like kind of a similar kind of tech, like using IPFS like stuff versus using the network um, of that. So
Yeah, I didn't I looked at Adam, but I as well couldn't fully like understand what um it was doing other than giving a like it looks like they're just kind of an extended gateway, but
mm-hmm.
that's still a useful service.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, I think what I'd like to be able to do is like, if I was gonna like choose holochain, um, for example, I'd like to be able to use, like for example, like I don't know if it's the same. But they're both kind of doing decentralized compute, but like IPVM is like decentralized compute just for IPFS. But like, so I don't know if that's like trying to do like a virtual machine on a virtual machine on a virtual machine or something. If you did IPFS on top of a holochain and then IPVM on top of that IPFS, um, or something. But like, but I mean, what would be interesting is like you you could take things that were like IPVM that were written for the IPFS ecosystem, but then merge them over to the holochain ecosystem. So that'd be kind of neat without like really deeply refactoring the code. Um,
Yeah, it,
that would be
it can
nice.
enable some use cases there.
You think it what?
Um, it could enable some use cases there, just because you have that same like kind of external interface layer that can talk to each other. It's the equivalent of HTTP just for them. Um,
Yeah. So I'm kind of talking out in the air. I mean, like, I mean, when I was reading the holochain paper, it's kind of like there was a lot of in-depth things. I mean, like I think I'd have to reread it many times and then play more with the holochain ecosystem to really understand what was going on. I just feel like I got a kind of a surface level feeling for it. Same thing with IPFS. I read through that paper like last night and kind of leaning through it. I was like, okay, you know, it's like it's kind of like um, reading a magazine article really fast for me. So I just don't like
yeah.
get as deep into that. Um, okay, stop talking. Is Lawrence? Did you look into any of this or?
I'm going to admit that I've been pretty busy with other things.
Okay, cool. I mean, it's good to kind of have you around though. So,
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty toasty. The my toast getting burnt out. The I'm skipping doing OKC OSH this week because I don't have any content. Um, but I have on the AI ML front though. I've been doing some interesting stuff on or doing some interesting reading on LLM driven robotics.
okay.
There is some really interesting projects happening on Hugging Face right now, where they are taking an LLM and a couple of, and it's kind of at very beginning stages of it, but they're taking some LLM work that's I think two or three data sets that I think they've identified, and they're trying to basically turn them into general purpose models, and then applying them to like a 5-axis, 6-axis robot arm. Um, like a general purpose robot arm. And then that gives you the ability to do like a multimodal model and do things like say, like draw me a picture of a cat and then pick up a pen and then draw it on a piece of paper. And then use the LLM to basically start creating the project planning or the path planning or the task planning, and doing it in a way that is generative, and can ideally create complex interactions with the real world using real world end effectors. Um, and this is if it has the potential to like breaking open like wide open the potential for doing robotics in everyday life. Whereas normally people would spend hours and days trying to do path planning and project planning, being able to just like describe to a model what you want and then like yell at it, no, 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 do it differently. Um, I think will have a huge impact in the field of robotics. Um, and there's been a couple of like demo projects doing this already. But I think one of the things that's been lacking is a lot of transparency, and opening up to a wider breadth. So that's the thing that's been, I think, the most exciting thing I've seen so far.
So,
Um,
so you could take a robot with this loaded on there, and you could kind of train it like it was a toddler, and it was sort of learn.
um, that's the goal. There's a couple more steps in between because as we've already established, there's a bunch of like ontology steps of like training the model to think in like human languages. Then there's like a bunch of like object tracking and vision tracking problems of like identifying and then classifying real world objects. And there's a bunch of path planning problems about like how do you basically get the end effector to effectively pick up arbitrary objects. And then there's a bunch of tasks involved of like how do you combine these all together into a recurring neural network that can do some level of online learning on the model as you're posting a torrent file from a computer, even though it took like several hours for it to like propagate through the network. I was able to like serve files directly from a computer remotely, um, like from like really low resource constrained devices. Um, Whereas when I tried to do that with IPFS, it just like didn't ever do anything, and I don't know why. So
Yeah, you might have needed a lot more powerful device and a port open, but I'll look into providing that one day because I can definitely get local nodes online, but also my local node, whenever I have it fully online, breaks my internet around the house because of the traffic it creates. At
really,
least to have
why
it
is that so hard?
scans the DHT pretty much almost constantly
Really?
to know where nodes are to be able to publish the data. BitTorrent has to do this as well, but its protocol is a bit more mature, so I don't think it's as noisy out of the box.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of configuration that needs to be done for IPFS to make it work for different applications. Like I think
Yeah,
I feel like
and
a
the
lot of
documentation is not there for like a out of the box. How do I get this started in 5 minutes thing?
yeah, because I mean the actual use case of having like a temporarily online data cache of your local files makes a lot of sense. Um, like it'd basically be like having like an always online local like hard drive, like a hard drive NAS that you just carry with you, and like you take it home, you plug it into your router, and you turn it on. You have like a local cache of all your files, but it also backs up to all the other local caches you have scattered around. So you could have one like plugged into at work, you have one plugged in at like your friend's house, you got one plugged in at your parents' house, you got one plugged in at home, and you got one plugged into your car and one plugged into your like laptop bag, and they all like sync to each other whenever they get internet and power. Um, and so backups are transparent, um, and data deduplication is transparent, and data migration is transparent. Um, you get into problems of like, do you really need that file? And some kind of growth, but those are solvable problems.
Yeah,
Um,
uh, but it, the formatting of their DHT spec paper was really good, just like the like theme they used. So I'm trying to figure out what theme that was.
is that listed in the reading groups or
Um,
the?
yeah, it's in the reading group. It's in one of the big posts by Brent.
Okay, I'll have to go. I'll have to go back and read some of this.
And I did not get into the decentralized rep nodes good enough to know what is going on. I've read about DidCom, and I haven't like digested that enough to like progress to decentralized web node.
Oh yeah, I'm still here.
Um, Outside of that, the only interesting thing I've been that's been taking up my time lately is been working on mutable file system stuff in IPFS. So it's related to work, but if you create a bucket, upload like website into it, you can then put tag on the bucket using the S3 API, and that tells it to generate an CID for your bucket. So it lets you like mutate your file system and then flush it and generate the IPFS structure at the end. And that's like that makes it a lot easier to publish websites and stuff on it because before to like publish a website across any of the pinning providers, you had to bundle everything into a car file, which is like a Protocol Labs alternative to a tar. So there's so many tiers of knowledge you have to stack together to get there that it removes. Now I get to do the boring part of writing. a blog post about it.
A blog post about your experiences.
About like how MFS can be used with IPFS to like make all of these things easier, and um, it's essentially the the guide that should already be there on how to use IPFS to easily host a website.
Hmm.
Because like my research extended all the way from S3 with IPFS and into IPNS and DNS link, and getting all that hooked up was quite the experience. But the cool thing about DNS link is it lets you use multiple web hosting providers, technically, with like DNS round robining. Because since the instructions to route to your content are in your DNS, you can like have a file-based gateway that's doing your hosting, and like maybe have like a Cloudflare gateway that's also able to host your website, and like the network doesn't care. Whereas like normally you'd have to have a really complicated syncing process going on between your different hosting providers.
Okay. Oh, so you're talking about hosting on the cloud, or?
Um, yeah, but hosting in a cloud, but in a way that uh, you can have multiple website hosts, or like providing it for you, so that you aren't dependent on one website host being online.
Yeah, that's not actually really useful.
But it's been around for years, just taking everybody forever to get it to like a easy out of the box use it place.
I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense, but I think part of the reason why projects take so long is because there's no business incentive to creating pathways for Exodus, and
Right.
so it probably gets ignored a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes we kind of feel at a disadvantage because we're so pro Exodus.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really powerful use case that it would probably require, like, I feel like there should be like a mandatory government mandate that Exodus is a right as a digital citizen, and that may fix some of those problems.
I think that's
Um,
why AWS has gives you a free pass if you're exporting your data now. Like you don't have to pay the bandwidth fees
oh, really? That's nice.
because of the EU, not our stuff. You have to like call your salesperson and coordinate everything with them, and I'm sure it's like a timeshare. And like, oh, are you really sure you want to go? We can give you a coupon.
Oh, something in the background. Okay. Um. Yeah, I haven't. I guess the centralized web node and IPVM. I couldn't find like white papers for that. I guess it's just kind of specifications and then like implementation of such things. So.
Yeah, that was my trouble too. And I didn't dig into it enough to like learn enough from the implementation.
Yeah, but decentralized web nodes takes a lot of stuff from the decentralized identity and decentralized identity foundation ecosystem. and tries to implement that. Because if yeah, and I guess Daniel Boutinier
was what was powering the network for the longest time.
But then the value of the Filecoins they were receiving dropped so much they won't accept Filecoin plus deals anymore, as far as I understand, and none of the people that are taking deals are taking them at low values. They're taking them at like what a proper actual hosting value is, which I think is healthy for the environment, but it's caused a lot of economic turmoil in the meantime.
I see. So, I guess that's a really interesting point.
There was, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to think about like at the root fundamentals, like hosting a Filecoin server should be the driving force for the cost of a Filecoin. But I'm curious whether or not but I think the metrics for I think one of the problems with like having this is one of my problems with like using things like a system that could be like that has it built into the coin itself to distribute the market. I mean, it means that the market forces on the coin itself immediately dilute the use case can overshadow the use case of the the functional coin itself. So, I mean, you get people speculating on a usage of a fundamental unit of work, which would be hosting files, serving files, and the value of that could exceed the actual use case of the task itself. And at that point, you have a mismatch between the coin and the market. I think that's dangerous because it basically creates a false narrative where you can't actually use the coin for its purpose. And then you've got the case where like it devalues the use of its actual fundamental consumer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Another
Yeah.
difficulty with these protocols in Ethereum and Filecoin included is a lot of times the data is like encoded and encrypted, and it has to go through a cycle to get all that out. So all of this is having to compete with static storage, which is very cheap for Amazon to fulfill, and that's what. If it's stored to try to advertise themselves as not as anything special that like really like shows that your data is on the network or that it's retrievable faster, because it's not, but it's a work in progress. And I know that the biggest thing that's going to change for Filecoin is I think they're adding like an additional file layer into it that can like allow faster retrievals and change the way the data is stored for new deals so that it's not difficult to retrieve. Ethereum, I'm not sure what to do with Ethereum, because it's just like a crypto token that I can kind of write a smart contract on and track some things, but I can't really trigger anything on it. So it's just a very fancy state machine in my mind.
I mean, it kind of makes sense if you're building an organization on top of Ethereum, like a digital contract on top of Ethereum. But like I wouldn't want to use it for anything that's not like state-based. And it also seems that you write an ironclad contract, which it's non-trivial even for most lawyers. So I feel like it would. They have done really interesting work on adding in theory improving built into the algorithm, or so that you can language that allow you to do Ethereum proof-based programs that they get written into Ethereum contracts. I feel like that's almost going to be necessary to be able to write contracts, because you have to be able to say things like, is it logically possible for the set of preconditions that you already thought of to take place? And then you always have the problem of like, do you have everything this off, list all possible scripts that could be seen on the network? The answer is probably not, but most scripts are just replays of historical scripts. Like,
Ethereum really works well with the contract.
yes.
Because
That's my
I don't
opinion.
really work close to that world right now. But I guess that makes sense.
I mean, and the reason being is that the cost of executing the contract is very expensive. But I think it's been used for a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. Like they're using Ethereum for like NFTs, or using Ethereum for like, I don't know. I mean, almost everything. But because of the pay machine and the cost of running the contract, it only really makes sense for doing like large scale organizational decision making, and doing it autonomously. Like a use case would be something like you've got a business that needs to enter into an agreement with another business, and you want to be able to like set up a series of like conditions and clauses automatically whenever you like fulfill the contract part. So for example, if you wanted to do like escrow, like an online escrow account service, you could basically have like a automatic escrow account service where all the check balances, like the pre-depositing of cash, of setting up the unique identifiers, creating a contract, set up the time limit for certain applications of the escrow service, for the holding of the funds, fees that can be distributed at a later date. All that can be done automatically with an Ethereum contract that is executed on a regular basis. And then the execution of that escrow service will be done automatically as well. And it can be transparently observable and audited without having to have somebody like go in and request the contract from the lawyer or the government or the bureaucracy. So I mean that's where it really comes in, like the business agreement, and then organizational agreements. Like you want to set up an ironclad dispersion of ownership of the company, or have like an ownership of the company, or like a user-based ownership of the company, where like by joining the company you automatically get a series of shares. Automating the process of generating those contracts, those agreements, so they're not managed by office workers. It's really used today. And then in the far future of like AI land, you could envision a case where you have an LLM that's basically self-learning based on its interaction with the environment. Like it's essentially how to propagate itself based on economic input. Because that's what we currently do with business and small business, is that we've learned how to basically do business based on economic input. Just that it's a very hard lesson to learn, and people spend, and like you have to distribute the intelligence for how to do it across like 5 to 20 people to really do it right. Which is one of the reasons why small business is so hard to grow, is because the information for how to basically like grow a small business is usually incorporated into like a large sum of people that you have to all have involved in your small business to make it a large business, which is what's actually sustainable. So, but in theory, an AI can encompass all that into a single agent.
I made my AI CEO.
I mean, CEO, COO. It's my go-to CEO.
It's going to eat up the CFO space eventually, like sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah, you drop that on top of like a small business, and you have the small business able to compete with larger businesses, and it's going to like completely demolish most businesses, because most large corporations have so much grip built into them that a small business could eat its lunch day in, day out if it just had the ability to like have enough impact to be able to like work like a larger business.
Yeah.
Like it'll be nuts. Like if you want to think of a killer app for AI, like that right there would be a killer app. Like, and all it would be is basically it'd be like an AI advisor. So people who are actually doing small business, meeting business work would never feel like they're like getting the power taken away from them. They basically have like a personal assistant that's better. It basically be like what most personal assistants are, anyways, which is like somebody who's better at whatever you're trying to do, and they just feed you the good information so that you can look better than you actually are. So, like, it from a use case scenario, we already have it. It's just that you have to pay somebody like $30,000 $40,000 to $50,000 a year to get it. So,
Yeah. All right, I've got a work meeting
okay.
that is coming up at 1:20, so I've got to jump off, so I have a few moments.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for letting me talk about AI, and I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, talk to you all next week. Bye.
Bye.
How you doing, Brent?
I think I have to clean up my laptop again. It's getting dust bunnies in there. It keeps shutting down.
Yeah, you may need to also disassemble it and replace the fan and reapply thermal grease because your heat cycling is pretty impressive. But yeah, you might have to.
What's wrong with the fan?
It's loud. Like your laptop sounds like it's taking off whenever you use it. You're probably used to it by now, but most people have much more quieter laptops, which means that you probably have a thermal. You may have like a thermal issue where like even like let's put it this way: if you clean up your laptop and your fan still sounds like it's taking off, you may need to reapply thermal grease to the heat sink. And the reason being is that sometimes the heat sink and the thermal grease separates because it gets old and hot. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that once it starts happening, it perpetuates. Some people just buy new laptops, but I don't know if you're in the market if you're in the place where you can buy a new laptop. But most people just replace the laptop before they have to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But it may be if you clean it out and it still has issues, that may be your next step.
Okay. Huh. Oh, and how? I mean, you know a junk deal, or well, maybe I should turn off the recording.